Shavua Tov Shalom, everybody, and welcome to a new week with me, Rolene Marks, right here on the Israel Brief, where you guys join me for the top stories making headlines every Monday to Thursday. As always, we take your audience questions, so if there's something that you would like answered, and hey, we have no holy cows, please be in touch either via our website or via our social media. And you can ask me anything and I'll do my best to answer it. And a reminder that every Thursday we take a look at your choices, okay, and some of mine, for the mensches, the great people, and the morons of the week. So put those thinking caps on and let's get nominating. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. So let's take a look at our top stories. It is day 773. And we still have 3 hostages whose remains are captive in the Gaza Strip. A short while ago, Israel laid to rest Meni Goddard, whose remains we received back over the weekend. He was laid to rest alongside his late wife on Kibbutz Be'eri. They were both murdered on the 7th of October and his remains taken captive into the Gaza Strip. Now we still have 3 more hostages left. It is absolutely imperative that they come home now. Every minute that they are in Gaza creates more anxiety for their families and is a violation of the ceasefire, which specifies that they needed to be returned by the 12th of October. So let's take a look at those top stories, and we begin with news that the United Nations will vote later today to endorse President Trump's ceasefire plan for Gaza. Now, what the plan will engage in is that Gaza will be handed to what we call an ISF, or International Stabilization Force, made up of foreign troops and an apolitical Palestinian administration. Now, Israel, according to this deal, will also withdraw further inside the yellow line. Now, what is quite interesting and not surprising is that Hamas and other Palestinian terror organizations have rejected the idea of an ISF, saying that this is a violation of Palestinian sovereignty, because the ISF and the apolitical leadership will be overseen by Trump's Board of Peace. And of course, there's a lot of controversy about the choice of former British Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair being the person to head up this Board of Peace. Meanwhile, some concerning reports that Hamas could be stashing weapons overseas. The reports say that weapons could be stashed around the African continent, as well as in Yemen and in Europe. We're staying in the Gaza Strip, and yesterday Israeli soldiers found a diary belonging to a Hamas commander. This was in the city of Beit Hanun. Khaled Abu Akram had written in his diary, amongst many things, how Hamas exploited the civilian population, saying that they had set an ambush outside a school after some tunnels were bombed. He also wrote that they used UN facilities, including, and I'm going to quote you from the diary, "We took the batteries from the UN clinic, removed the solar panels, and prepared the water well." So here we have empirical proof how Hamas exploits the civilian population, using them as human shields. And this is something that Hamas has been boasting about for decades. I just wish the international community would pay attention when Hamas is telling you their intentions. Yesterday, the coalition government voted that they will establish or appoint a government committee to investigate the 7th of October. This has long been called for by Israelis who are demanding an inquiry into what went wrong and the lessons we should be learning from the 7th of October. Now, the committee, whose members will be appointed by the government and whose scope has yet to be determined, has faced a lot of criticism from, amongst others, the hostage families, members of the opposition, as well as members of the public who are saying, well, how can we rely on a committee like this or a commission like this if it is not wholly independent of the government? So we are going to be watching this one to see how it progresses and who will be chosen to be part of this commission. And now finally, it's the story that really has gripped attention, and I've been doing a lot of media work in South Africa around this, and in my years as a journalist, I've never come upon a story as convoluted and as bizarre with so many different pieces of the puzzle. And this is the story of the mysterious plane that landed on the tarmac at OR Tambo Airport in South Africa on Friday with 153 Palestinians. So let's break the story down. Video footage started to circulate on social media of these 153 Palestinians who were stranded on the tarmac, I think for about between 9 to 12 hours on an, at the time, unknown flight. Now, these Palestinians from Gaza were reportedly not allowed into the airport because they had no documentation. Nobody knew who was responsible for them. They didn't know who to contact. And enter Imtiaz Suleiman and Gift of the Givers, a so-called humanitarian organization who immediately rushed to create this anti-Israel narrative by blaming everything on Israel, saying that Israel did not stamp the passports of these Palestinians deliberately to make their travels as difficult as possible. But here's the kicker. Israel has stopped stamping passports. In fact, we stopped stamping passports in January 2013. A practice that is commonly carried out by many countries. I mean, you guys know I've traveled quite a bit this year, and my passport has not been stamped, and I've received like no documentation on my leaving. It's all entered into the computer. So immediately we had this flurry of NGO activities demanding they be let in. Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, using some very unpalatable language, saying we have flushed them out and they must be let in, that we welcome them, it's the humanitarian thing to do. Of course, as journalists in Israel, we have investigated this. How did this happen? How is it that there's no call logs, there's no knowledge of this group arriving? So what we know is that these Palestinians were amongst 250 that applied to leave the Gaza Strip. We know that this particular group paid up to about $6,000 to be able to leave the Gaza Strip. And the IDF facilitated their safe exit as per the international agreement signed at Sharm el-Sheikh. And because we are a humanitarian country, we're not like Egypt, who has closed its borders, or Hamas, that does not want Gazans to leave. Some left through the Allenby crossing into Jordan, and others were part of this flight that flew from Ramon Airport in Israel to Kenya, and then another flight chartered through to South Africa. Enter the Palestinian embassy in South Africa, who've said, no, we'll take care of it. And they've been issued a temporary 90-day visa. And after that, basically, they have to move. Or will they? The arrival of these Palestinians has resulted in tremendous backlash in South Africa amongst many people who have said that South Africa can ill afford a group of people with a potential security risk. Not only that, is that there are people in South Africa who could do with the help, that are sleeping on the streets, never mind importing more refugees. Now, what is very interesting is we've seen a complete change in the rhetoric coming from the Minister of International Affairs, Ronald Lamola. Yes, he was the former Justice Minister who initiated that court case against Israel at the ICJ. Of course, it didn't look so good for South Africa on Friday when you've got stranded Palestinians on the tarmac without food, without water, without medical assistance, without ablutions. Well, he accused Israel of ethnic cleansing and said, no, they must go back to Gaza because this is a violation of their sovereignty, and we will ensure that they go back to Gaza. It's amazing how that whole argument has changed. Now, also very interesting is that members of the media have spoken to some of the Gazans who have said that they were told not to speak to anyone, not to speak to the press, not to pack anything, and basically were treated pretty horrendously by the authorities. And the IDF have said, we facilitated their safe travel. From our perspective, if any group of Gazans leaving have to be confirmed to be received by a third-party country. So in other words, South Africa knew very well that these refugees that paid $6,000 to get out were on their way to the country. This is the second flight, and because now South Africans are up in arms and don't want this, suddenly South Africa says, no, they must go back. No, we can't accept anymore. No. That's being party to ethnic cleansing. So guys, you tell me, who dropped the ball? I'll give you a big hint. It wasn't the State of Israel. So those are our top stories. Now let's take a look at the audience question of the day, and it comes from Andrew in London, who says, what do I think of the BBC scandal? So if you haven't been following, the Director General of the BBC and the Director of News Programme have both resigned, following reports that they had doctored a speech by President Trump for a documentary on Panorama Newsnight. Now, the US president is suing them for £1 billion. And you can imagine, because they've spliced together quotes to make it look like he's called for violence. So what are my thoughts? My thoughts are like, sometimes the leave people alone and they'll hang themselves. Because in this case, the BBC and their institutionalized anti-Semitism and Israelophobia has been investigated for well over a decade. You've had several reports, and this is all aside from the President Trump issues. You've had the Balin report that was buried. We've now got the Prescott report that explains just how institutionalized Jew hatred and Israelophobia is within the ranks of the BBC. We've heard from previous staff members who've said that it is absolutely rife. And one of the points that this investigation shows that the BBC have had to correct at least 2 Israel-related stories a week that have been inaccurate, that they've rushed to reporting, taking Hamas's word as the absolute gospel, ignoring a sovereign state in Israel. And my opinion on this, Andrew, to answer your question, it's about damn time. And there needs to be major reforms at the BBC, or else it should be defunded. So guys, that's it from me for today. Please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. If you like us, because we like you, please consider hitting that red subscribe button. We are on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, Substack at Rolene Marks, Instagram at Rolene_Marks, and what am I forgetting? And Facebook at Lottle Site. So guys, God bless you all. I will see you again tomorrow, and bye for now.